yeah, this is how I made the disjointed bass. It's a little bit complicated, so save this for later so you can come back to it and get jiggy, you feel me? So we're starting with a square 4 wavetable, and I have LFO1 with this nice little bend here, and we have it set to envelope mode so that we press it once and then it will do the cycle, and then it will end the cycle at the end instead of it re-triggering it over and over again. You can set that at the wavetable position however you like. Just play around with it, listen to it, whatever sounds good for you is great. Next, on the warp mode, we want to have it on Async plus. With Async plus, is it bends the wavetable or the waveform to the right. Next, we want to come to the filter, and we want to go to multi, and we're going to go to NN12. And what that is I like to call it the double notch 12 because there's 2 of them. And essentially what that does is it removes frequencies within a narrow band. And what I like to do is have them sort of very close together, and I've had LFO1 moving the cutoff so that it rolls past that point that I've already have removing frequencies, so that it can create this kind of washy feel, which is really cool. You can hear it already. So we're going to go over to the effects tab, and we're going to go to filter. We're going to go to multi again, and then we're going to go to high pass 12. What that does is it allows us to remove the low end frequency from our sound and allow us to add a little bit of automation as well to add some extra movement. And again, I'm using LFO1, and I've set that at 65 hertz. And the mix is at all the way at 100%. And that where that goes. Then we want to go ahead and open up a compressor, and we're going to have this on multi-band mode. We're going to have the gain all the way down and the mix all the way up at 100%. What this does is it kind of acts like an OTT, and then it brings forward our sound even further to be a bit more aggressive. Gives us a lot more mid-range. And we want to do this so that when we add multipass and OTT, our low end again, which will be reintroduced, can come through a lot more cleaner, and it will sound a lot more sick. You feel me? Okay, next we want to open multipass. This is where it gets juicy, you feel me? And sorry, like, I think I can make this smaller. I can't really make it that much smaller. Okay, I'm just gonna have to work with it like this, okay? So, I actually learned this trick from Odd Profit. I was watching a video that he made about gun basses and how multipass can make your gun basses fat. And I tried to use it in a different way. So a lot of the practices that I've done here are very similar to what he's done. So I'm using a phaser in the pre-effects, and that kind of acts like a, not quite like a disperser, but more of a smear tool, so that it it creates artifacts within your sound that you've already created. And I made this stretch very, very small, so about 38%, and I've grabbed the section so that it's right up against the sound, because it's got quite a lot of tail end there. So I've used that, and what that does essentially is create all these really cool transients as you press, and you get it kind of squashes it down as well, because I'm using the can I bring it over? Yeah, the NOTT, which is basically like OTT, but it squashes your sound and it gives you a bit more control with the upwards and downwards compression, which basically allows you to affect how much of the sound is coming in, or how much is being squashed from the beginning of the sound to the end of the sound. All right, cool. So coming over to the middle here, we have a convolver again. Let me see if I can make it a little bit bigger. There we go. I resampled an old sound that I made from a while ago, and I threw it into the convolver. If you want me to go into depth with what convolution reverb is, let me know in the chat, and I'll try to explain it as best as I can. But basically, it's like a reverb, but it simulates real word sounds and artificial sounds. And you can use that to shape your sound further and create new tones. So what I've done is I've threw my old sound in here, and I've made this uh the range between the start point and the end point really, really small. So we don't get a lot of reverberation, but we get a lot of the characteristics of the sound that I threw in there. And again, I've made the stretch really, really small at 30% so that we can get more of the transient of the sound and less of the body. And that's what gives you that punch as you're pressing the sound. And as you can see here, the mix is at 67% and the tone is at 18%. Next, we want to add some OTT. And this is what really makes the sound come to life. When you, this is what really makes the sound come to life. And that's what really introduces more of the low end. As you can see here, I've pushed up the low end a little bit more. The mids have been pushed a little bit, and I've attenuated the highs just a little bit. And I have the time at 0. It adds like a delay to your sound or to your synth. It adds a nice delay that I think sounds really cool. And I've had the downward compression all the way up at 200% because I don't want it to be too squashed, and we don't want to lose any of the characteristics of what we've already created through multipass and through syrup. Okay, and then lastly, we just want to, well, if you listen to it now, it sounds mad. And do you hear me? Like, it has a lot of abrasiveness. There's a lot of high end, there's a lot of mid range, and there's a lot of low end. In terms of mixing, though, I wouldn't really recommend this because it's really difficult to mix afterwards, because you don't have your frequency separated. Because usually I would have a sub bass that I would have separate, like a sine wave, for example, and I would EQ that and compress it and all of those lovely things afterwards, so that it's separate from the low mids and the mids and the highs, and you can have more control over the sound that way. But for this, I felt like it really worked for what I was trying to get, and I really wanted to have like a really abrasive but unique sound, and I think it worked. So after that, you want to just add like an EQ, and I've just done some very basic low cutting and a little bit of shelving as well, where I've taken where I've taken out some of those high end frequencies around 10k. Where is this? Okay, around 8k, and just rolled it down just a little bit so that it's not fully taking it out, but we're still getting a lot of the characteristics from that frequency range. Lastly, my favorite tool right now is freeform phase. And what that does is it allows you to essentially fuck up the phase of your sound, and you can draw your own shape for it to introduce new frequencies and take away other frequencies. And as you can see here, I've done this cool little line here, and the depth is at 463.5%, and I have it on extreme mode because I think extreme mode sounds the best. But obviously you can play with these things and like craft your own thing from this. You don't have to do it every single step that I've done. You can, you can use any wavetable you want with this. And the funny thing was, when I made this sound, is I was clicking through all of my wavetables and it created this kind of glitchy sound as I was clicking through. And because of the multipass, it adds more transients to it as you're clicking through. So what I did was I just recorded for like 10-20 minutes, and I got the audio, as you can see just down here. And then from there, I grabbed parts that sounded really cool and was in time with the beat, and I constructed like a bass line or a flow, if you will, with what I did basically.